80 years ago, the Reverend Wilbert Audrey. Actually, you all know how the story goes at this point, so let's just get into the video. Hello, everybody, and thanks for tuning in. I'm Blake, and you're watching BCo.Trains. Now, I know I'm over a month late for this celebration, but better late than never, right?
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Anyways, I thought it would still be fun to do something to commemorate the 80th anniversary of the Thomas & Friends franchise. Lately, I've been watching and honestly been inspired by Thomas creators on this website like MTI, who take the ideas from the Thomas episodes and turn them into layouts. But instead of basing this little project on any specific episode from the show, I thought it would be fun to do the same idea with an entire book from the Railway series. And what better one to start off with than the story that birthed the entire Thomas and Friends universe? So, without further ado, I present my wooden railway layout based on the 3 railway engines. Alright everyone, here it is. This is my layout of the 3 railway engine story. Now, it's not the most impressive one in the world, given that it's only built on a 4-foot by 3-foot table, but nonetheless, I tried to pack as much detail into it as I possibly could. Now, I'd like to start this tour at the center focal point of the layout, which is where the shed resides. These 2 workshop sheds right beside each other are meant to represent the sheds from the first illustration of the first book, which I feel like they do a pretty good job of doing, minus the shape of the roof and doors, but it's about as close as you can get wooden railway-wise. Coming out of the sheds are 4 tracks, which eventually narrow down to 3, and I would like to start on the farthest right track of the shed, which is where Edward is. And if we follow this line down, it goes right to this junction here, which goes into the second thing in the center of the layout, which is the shunting yard. Now, I took some creative liberty by adding the shunting yard just as somewhere to house the freight cars that Gordon pulls in the second story, and I feel like it adds a lot of character too, because this part was just a little too empty for me. And as we leave the shunting yard, follow this line, we eventually go to the first portal of Henry's Tunnel. And now, I want to backtrack and go to the second line coming out where Gordon is. As we follow that, we get to this junction here. Follow that line straight, which goes into the second portal. So I made Henry's Tunnel here just using 2 old tunnels from the 90s, side by side. As much as I would have loved to use the official release of Henry's Tunnel from the 90s, I unfortunately am not a trillionaire and cannot afford it, so these do a pretty good job, and in my opinion, this works a little better as there are 2 portals right there, whereas the official one only had 1. I also added a little function to this where it's nothing special, but it's where you can take this little 2-inch piece of track up and simply replace it with those buffers to simulate the wall that was built in front of Henry. As you pass through Henry's Tunnel, you come up around these curves right here with some little set dressing buildings in the background, and these 2 lines merge into one right there with those points, and that single line rises up this hill, which is meant to represent Gordon's Hill. I like the use of the 2 risers here underneath because it not only does it add height, but it also gives a pretty good backdrop to the shed. Coming down the other side of Gordon's Hill, I added this little curve here because I was running out of table space, and that line goes right down into Edward's station here. I tried to get this destination as close to the illustration as possible, with the two lines going past it and the road on the right side going by. Now, I know this pedestrian bridge here in the illustration is a road bridge, but it still does the part pretty good. And this second line here, I know it's supposed to be a main line, but I have it ending back in a siding there, just because, again, I ran out of space, and this also adds a lot of character. Leaving Edward Station, you come to this road crossing here, and with the road, I didn't loop it around or anything, and I thought it looked pretty good just being a straight line, and I think it also adds distance to this. It makes it feel like it's going beyond the table. After the crossing, you come to this junction, and if you go straight, you go past this stop and go signal house, and then merge onto this line, which goes back to where Gordon is. And if you turn right at this junction, you go up right back into the sheds where you started. And that's about it for the layout. Now, I'd like to discuss the characters I included with it, starting with Edward here, as an obvious, as well as Gordon, Henry, and I also threw Big City Engine in there as well, just to represent one of the other engines in the shed, such as 98462. Oh, and I almost forgot James back here as well, who represents the red engine that tries to push Henry out of the tunnel. Rolling stock wise, I just grabbed a handful of different freight cars I had out of the bin, as well as the brake van back there, and these two fuel wagons as a little wink to the story of 98462. If you know, you know. I've also included a set of express coaches over here as well, for Edward or Henry or whoever to pull. And we also have Lorry 1, who's just decorating the road, as well as a scrap lorry over here, who, again, is just set dressing. As for the wooden houses I have sprinkled around the layout, I just happened to find a bag of them at my local thrift store for cheap, and I figured they looked pretty good. They add a lot more character, a lot more to look at with this layout. And it kind of almost simulates distance back in that corner. And that's about all I have to say for this layout. Thank you all very much for watching. This was an incredibly fun video to make, and I look forward to making the next one in the future. But until then, go have a good day, and go and make someone else's day. Oh, and happy Pride Month as well. I'll see you next time. Bye!